that Jack Ruby, people are like, oh, he's a small-time mobster. No, he's Jacob Rubenstein. He worked for Mickey Cohen, the Jewish mafia that were running guns out of Israel. And then the Zapruder film was shot by an Israeli. No one cares. I'm listening to people like Stefan Molyneux just keeping like the left, the media, it's like, is this just a big game for people? They're just like, no one can say it. No one can say it. They're just, Molyneux can draw conclusions based on average IQ theory, but will not point out who the media is and who the left is. A lot of these people are literally the grandchildren of the Bolshevik revolutionaries. They're the same people. I find it fascinating how much we were let down by our previous generations. Just people were in such a daze, just such a haze, just a generation lost in space, as Don McLean said. That no one even asked or cared. They just, a lone gunman. Are you sure? Are you sure it was a lone gunman? Just a lone gunman? Just Oswald he just really wanted to stick it to JFK. And Jack Ruby, it's like, oh yeah, and then Jack Ruby just shot Oswald. Well, so has anyone talked to Jack Ruby? No. Why? He's just a wild man. Old Jack Ruby. You mean Jacob Rubenstein? You can literally look that up on Wikipedia. It is less than 1% of the total population. Well, I mean, according to the Zapruder film, you can clearly see Israeli national Zapruder. He's literally also Jewish. Well, I mean, CNN, yeah, it's owned by an Israeli national, and it's the CEO is Jeff Zucker, who I actually know. He's awful. Jewish. Well, I mean, the New York Times, yeah, it's owned by one Jewish family. New York Times. Well, I mean, neocons, yeah, Trotsky, yep, Jewish, Crystal, Wolfowitz, all of it. It's actually kind of impressive. Jacob Rubenstein shot Oswald. The Zapruder film was Israeli, and they were by far, Kennedy did not want Israel to get nukes. And he also was it Khrushchev he was having conversations with to end the Cold War. So, I mean, the fact that they pulled that off is amazing. I mean, it's just incredible. That's why I'm not even like, oh, we got to do something. It's like, it's so beyond that. Like, we just really are just a colony at this point. But, I'm never going to stop thinking. But this will transition to my next thing. It's all about growing your own food. There's not going to be any justice. Mueller, there will be no jail time. There will be no apology. There will be no end. It will never end. That's why I focus on gardening and comedy and music and being a parent. Because what are we going to do? Are we going to go all the way back to Jekyll Island in 1913 and just be like, all right, guys, huddle around. Because you can't blame people for the sins of their ancestors. It's the same with me. I'm not responsible for any type of slavery. Just like Jews aren't responsible for the Federal Reserve, those people are all dead. They're all gone. Like, the people alive at that time didn't do anything, and they took the money, and they took the free stuff, and they took the security, and they didn't ask any questions, and they were, it's on them. It's fascinating. It's been a long, long progression, and it's interesting to watch someone like Stefan Molyneux unable to speak clearly. The media, the left. The media, the left. Wars, the state. Who are you talking about? It's all good. I mean, the irony is the Jews are way less evil for some of this than like John McCain. John McCain was an American who sold out his own people. That's the irony. That's why I have like mixed emotions about a lot of this stuff, because I think the worst people involved in some of these scams, some of these wars, are the Americans that went along with it for personal gain and personal wealth and accolades. You know? That those people, I think, are the worst. You know, sometimes I look at some of these Mossad guys and I'm like, wow. You know, they got just this giant war machine to just do all kinds of that benefited them. And I'm more angry at the people that went along with it for money, that call themselves Americans. Those are the people that I find just disgusting. Like John McCain is a disgusting animal. I mean, I put him as way more of an enemy of America than some of these tricksters, because he knowingly did it. I mean, because at least some of these Israelis were doing it for their own nation. I mean, yes, I feel tricked, but John McCain, thousands of Americans would die in these wars, you know, and people always are like, oh, CNN, damn CNN, they push the narrative of weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, it started with Netanyahu. Netanyahu, he's on film saying, I know for certain that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. And listen, he's doing it for his country. It's the wrong move, by the way. Iraq was Iran's enemy. He created a whole crescent of, it's on us. It's not on the Jews. It's like, so he's saying like, okay, so they have weapons of mass destruction, and then the media machine goes, and then we go to war, and there's no weapons of mass destruction, and now it's the same thing. Iran has weapons of mass destruction. They have nukes. And people are finally awake enough to not fall for that. But how retarded is our country? How just fat and just loathsome are we to just be like, okay, as long as no one takes away my stuff. It's so obvious when you see it. They use people's greed and sloth and envy and rage against themselves to a degree that I've never seen. It's an art form. You know, the fact that there's dual citizens, there's 80 Congress people that are dual citizens with Israel. We voted for them. You know, you got to assign blame where blame is. You know, Feinstein, who tried to keep another Catholic off the Supreme Court, is a dual citizen with Israel. And people are like, they still vote her in because of sloth and greed. And, you know, we deserve it. We just do. They convinced a giant to do the will of a mouse. And the mouse has a little tiny mouse hat. And who's really at fault? It's the giant. You're at fault for what you do. If someone tricks you, it's your fault. I've been tricked. Dude, I lost $50,000 from YouTube. You guys want to talk trick? People keep telling me, they're like, you handled that really well. It's my fault. That's how much YouTube owed me, $50,000. Like the memberships, the super chats, all that, 50 grand from the last 2 months. And it's like, I never was making that much on YouTube, not even close. And all of a sudden it's just, zoop. And I'm like, wow, you know, I'm like giving people money. I'm like making it rain to my friends and stuff. You know, people are getting it. Which one's this? Oh, Barbra Streisand. Yeah, by the way, so Jewish. By the way, I respect Barbra Streisand for not grinding down her beak. But Barbra Streisand owned it. But anyway, she said that Michael Jackson's accusers were thrilled to be there and his sexual needs were his sexual needs. Said by a true billionaire Jewish lady with no concept of reality at all, who thinks that her needs and her can include children. That's a true story. She really said that. She covers songs because why? The devil mimics. They can't create. All right. Oh, Cher is also vile. I think Cher's a dude. Cher's a dude. Here's a band of Jews. SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, implodes. President and legal director resign amid sexual misconduct scandal. The Southern Poverty Law Center, the vicious left-wing attack dog. By the way, they've attacked me viciously I think them and the ADL were responsible for demonetizing my YouTube. Yeah, keep the 50 grand. At least I'm not a rapist. Used by the likes of Facebook, run by a guy named Zuckerberg, Twitter, Google, sorry about Jews, Amazon to identify hate groups. By the way, a hate group is just a group you're allowed to hate. It's not a group of hate. Trust me, I am not a hateful man. I'm a loving man. I protect, I teach, I grow food, I grow life. A week after co-founder Morris Dees was ousted over sexual misconduct claims with his daughter, with 24 employees signing a letter of concern over allegations of mistreatment, sexual harassment, gender discrimination, and racism. By the way, the whole thing is all Jewish people. And by the way, me saying that, way less offensive than the rapes. The head of the SPLC, Richard Cohen, as well as the organization's legal director, Rhonda Brownstein, resigned on Friday. Yeah, because they're racist, sexist rapists, allegedly. Won't stop them. It's about power acquisition. It's about what you're willing to give them. And by them, I mean Jews with power. I'm not Molyneux. I'm not going to say the left, the media. I'm globalist, like Alex Jones says, the globalists, the elites. Well, then the left-wing guys say the neocons. Guys, when you're talking about groups that are over 80%, one demographic that is less than 1% of your population, we know what you're saying, and it's kind of pathetic that you can't just speak honestly. Because I'm from a culture where you call out monsters. Because I'm from an honor culture that comes from sheep herding, apparently. And so if you don't call out the monsters, people get your sheep. And if you don't do it yourself, there's no lines in the sand. There's no farm. You know, my ancestors were, it was about animal grazing. That's why you had to have good relationships and honor with your neighbors. Okay, so let's look at what I am growing. Hey guys, there's no logos in that. What you're doing right now is the lack of logos. And everyone knows it. Everyone knows it, boys and girls. I'm not even saying anything that's remotely untrue. And it's like, and some people are like, yeah, think of your future. I am. Think of your family. I am. How are you supposed to live in a world where you don't have any logical thought? Because I don't need justice. I don't need revenge. I just need to live in a world where I know that 2 + 2 is 4. And the bars are in your own mind. The Southern Poverty Law Center is like a fundamental thing in American culture. And they're supposed to be this house on a hill of morality. And they get to identify hate. They're racist, sexist, alleged rapists. To the point where the entire top of the whole thing just had to resign out of shame. That just happened. Barbra Streisand just said that Michael Jackson had sexual needs and the young boys he raped, allegedly. I don't even know, by the way. I don't have an opinion on Jackson. Here's a